Okay, so once again, quick disclaimer, this call is being recorded. If you don't want to, and we place our recordings on our YouTube channel, if you don't want to be recorded, you may want to drop off now. And with that, good morning and welcome to another session of Azure Power Lunch. And today we have an exciting topic, which is the uh, preview of private application gateway. So with that, let's just quickly dive into the content. Uh, what we're going to do is we always go over what is Azure App Gateway, just spend a few minutes on it, and then why we needed this feature and why it is so important for our customers. Um, so, first of all, Azure App Gateway is our layer 7 load balancer. If you are familiar with a load balancer, like Azure Load Balancer, this is a layer 4 load balancer. Okay, it's kind of do routing based on 5 tuples, source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port, and protocol. On the other hand, Azure Application Gateway is a layer 7 load balancer. It um, does content-based, rule-based routing like URL syntax and all. And at the same time, it handles your HTTP, HTTPS traffic. So, and this is not a software-based load balancer, it's an appliance. So basically, what happens is when you deploy it behind the scene, there are kind of VMs that are spin up, and that's kind of you know have the app gateway software installed, and they do uh, load balancing, and it has web application firewall with it as well. So if you want to enable that feature, okay. So now, uh, um, with a quick introduction, let's come and talk about what are the current challenges. I'm sure if you have been using App Gateway V2 or have you used in the past, you know that let's say if you want to deploy it inside VNet for the traffic that is kind of your internal traffic, it has to be it has to have a public IP, no matter what you do, okay? Because it communicates with the a gateway manager service. You have to have a tag as well, okay? And and then it requires outbound access to internet, which was a no-no for a number of customer uh, who are like from the heavily regulated industries like telco or finance, because in those cases it becomes a big data exfiltration concern. So that's why. So if you want to do a private deployment, that is not possible. And if you use a firewall, what happens is that some of the monitoring and matrix data is lost. So that were some of the challenges. So having it in an enterprise where you have like a lot of controls, that was a blocker. And that's where comes the private app gateway V2. First of all, just keep in mind, this is in public preview. Okay. This is available only in public preview. Um, and what it does is it allows you to have a front end IP configuration with a private IP without needing a public IP address. So it's a completely private um, IP address, um, and with the previous, like with the existing app gateway V2, as it was hauling management traffic over the customer network, it does not do that. It eliminates the need of having any source of NSGs with like having controlling like NSG with service tag of gateway manager and things like that. No need to do that. You can deny all outbound traffic. Or let's say that if you are accessing backend services which are available, let's say that you want to access a service in the backend which is available on the internet, then just keep in mind that you will have to then explicitly open NSG. So you can basically block all outbound traffic except to that network address, and you have to use, as far as I know, NAT gateway as well, private NAT gateway. So NAT gateway as well. So just to make sure that there is an IP address, public IP address when you are accessing that backend service. But for all practical purposes, the key message here is you can control block all inbound traffic. No need to have gateway manager. All outbound traffic through an NSG. Completely locked down private app gateway that you can use. Okay, and it can use private Azure Private DNS Zone for as a DNS resolver as well. So that's another thing. It's if it's in your own virtual network. So any questions?
Naveed, there's a question
Okay.
on the chat. There are two questions. You answered one with there's you could do private DNS. The other one was, can the private app gateway load balance between workloads in different regions?
No, no, no. That's okay. That's a good question. As long as you have visibility to those workloads, you can do that. But as so basically, let's say you peered those VNets, then you can do that. Otherwise, no. At this point, it's not your private traffic manager. Okay, I know what this. I think I know where this question is heading. Can it be a private traffic manager where it can load balance across region? No, it is not. It is all mainly for the workloads that are in that VNet. Okay, services that are running in that VNet. Got it?
But peered is okay though, right?
Excuse me?
Peered VNets are okay to load balance between though,
Yeah. Actually,
but not
let me take it back. I have to check. I have to check if the peer VNets are okay. I thought I read somewhere that at this moment, yeah, I will have to get back to you on that. So please ping me.
thank you.
Yes, sorry, I don't want to give you a wrong answer. And then, so I thought I read somewhere about the peer VNet. Okay, so any other questions?
I think on the chat, Naveed, I'm with you on the peer networks. That's what I also remember. I think you're right, but
Yeah,
yeah, won't hurt to double check.
exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I will check on that. So here is our demo scenario. For the demo scenario, I have two app service instances. I have created private endpoints, dropped them in my workload VNet, which is has three subnet. One is a PE subnet. I have dropped the subnets there. So sorry, private endpoints there. Then I have the app gateway, and app gateway needs a dedicated subnet. So that's there. I mean, that's dedicated to it, and it's that hasn't changed. So you cannot drop anything there. And then I'm running a simple VNet in the third subnet, and I'm trying to access those websites through the app gateway. So that's all there is to it. Very simple infrastructure. I have a private DNS zone, and I have just given the pictures below, and we will look at the actual, um, kind of a infrastructure in Azure portal. So just these pictures are for reference if somebody is taking a look at the slide. So this is the infrastructure, okay? But before you do that, before you get to that step, there is a step that is required, which is enabling the preview, okay? So that step you have to take. So let's jump into the demo, and we will come back to this picture while we are looking at the demo. And let's quickly go in here. So I am in my Azure subscription, and look here, I am in the preview features, and this feature, enable application gateway network. You have to go in and you have to register for it. And by the way, there's a link in the documentation and the resources I have put in. It very clearly shows you what step you have to take. So I'm just describing as a part of the demo. So you have to go in there, you have to check it, register it. It will take a minute or two to register. And once that is registered, then you can start creating the app gateway private v2. Okay, one thing, please remember, do not do this on a production subscription. Here is why. After you do this, you can only create this preview versions of the gateway. You cannot do the v2 release version. Okay, so let's think about it. You do it on a subscription, which is used for production. Uh, and then when the next thing you do is when you create that, you will not be able to do the V2 version of the gateway. You will only be able to do the V2 version of the preview gateway. So please just keep in mind, do not do this on a production subscription. Do it on a test subscription, test it out. So make sure you are aware of it. And by the way, the documentation also covers it. So it's, uh, just be careful about it. Okay. So once you have done that, let's go into our resource group and let's create a gateway. And we are not going to create the gateway. We just going to see what is the experience look like, and then we go from there. So we go in here, and as usual, okay, so this is the application gateway. We go in here, we say we want to create the application gateway, and we are going to name it some NZAPP test. Okay, standard V2, and it's still a V2 0 this, and we are going to select a okay front ends. Okay, that's where it's that's I wanted to show basically just this screen. The rest of the stuff is pretty much same as before, private. Okay, so now you don't have to pick a public. You can pick a private IP address, and you have to define that private IP address. Okay, that will be the private IP address of your app key, and then you can complete the rest of the process, and it will take a few minutes to spin it up, and you create your application gateway. So that's what I was referring to when I was saying this private gateway, and that's the step you have to keep in mind. Okay, so let's say that we go through all the steps. We create application gateway, and here is an application gateway that I have already created. Here it is. Here is the application gateway. So as you can see here, I'm not using availability zone since it's just a demo. Standard V2, it's not a version upgrade. Standard V2, it's an enhancement. Then we have, this is the IP address that I have assigned to it. Oh, by the way, when you create it, this will automatically assign a tag to it, enhanced network control. Okay, so you will see this tag pop up. I didn't put this tag. When it gets created, it will assign this tag to it. Okay, and let's look at the front-end IP configuration. This is the front-end IP configuration. Public front-end is not created. That's that. We have the backend pools, and I have the app service in that backend pool private through the private endpoints. Okay, and now let's take a look before we jump into other stuff. Let's take a look at the virtual network. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to go into the virtual network, and this is my virtual network, and you will see there are three subnets: PE subnet, VM subnet, and the subnet that we are really interested in is the app gateway subnet. Why? Because we want to control both the ingress traffic and egress traffic from that. And for that, we have NSGs that we have placed. Okay. And this is the NSG for that. Just think about it. If you remember, we talk about limitation that app gateway V2 had. So where you have to have NSG tag going out and sorry, coming in, gateway manager tag, you have to put that for service tag, and then for going out you have to allow unlimited egress to internet. Look at the rules here. First of all, inbound security rules. Nothing. All traffic blocked. Only VNet to VNet is allowed. Got it? And all other rest of the traffic from internet, no NSGs, nothing. Second part, outbound. I have, since I am accessing only the resources that are in my VNet, that's why all all outbound is disallowed. So basically, there is no inbound, there is no outbound. It's all internal. Okay. So with that, let's take a look at our remote desktop. So this is the second. What happened to my remote desktop? Okay, so it disappeared. Give me 1 second. Let's get it back. So in the meantime, any questions? Yeah.
Maybe there's a question from the chat. So
Please
the
go ahead.
subscription, once registered to use private app gateway preview, can never be used for production once GA is open. Is that correct?
Once GA is open, yes, once it's GA, then, but you can turn on that flag, turn off that flag if you want to use it back. But I'm just saying that if it is a production subscription, then you may not want to turn on that flag because maybe other people who are trying to create this resource and they may get in trouble. You see what I'm saying?
Got
So
it. I got it. Thank you.
yeah, so the flag, I mean, you can turn it off, but once again, um, on a production subscription, it can raise some interesting questions. So, what happened? Okay, so let me just sign in, guys. 1 second. Okay, folks, 1 second. I'm just trying to move this thing to the main screen. Okay, so this is my remote desktop. I hope you can see it uh, once it refreshes. So this is my website. As you can see, I can access it. So think of it. This VM is Windows VM. This is running in the same VNet. And just for the reference, so nobody is confused, this is my virtual network. One subnet I have dropped app gateway, and this is its IP address. On the other subnet, I have two private endpoints in this one, you know, and those private endpoints are tied to app services on the back. I have here, I have another subnet where I am running my virtual machine. Okay, so this is connected to gateway, which is connected to these app services. And then I have a private DNS zone. And as you can see here, these are the private DNS zone settings, So I have set up all the, just like usual stuff. When you have app service, you have private DNS zone. That's how your settings will look like. So all of it. And app gateway is going to use this private DNS zone to connect to these services since there's no way going over the internet, and I have blocked internet access from my app services as well. So only they can be accessed through these private endpoints. I hope everybody is with me so far. And here is, so yeah, this is, I can access it. But now I want to go through the app gateway. So this is, you can see the IP address of the app gateway. And since I am kind of a penny pinching in the cloud, I'm using a self-signed certificate. That's why you see this error. If you see this error with any other website, don't access it since it's my website. I know I am accessing it. So as you can see here, you see it's load balancing going back between. So I have one website, server one website, server two, and as you can see, it is switching back and forth with server one and server two. If I go in here, look, you see that? I mean, so that's very simple example, nothing fancy in it. But the point I wanted to convey is that you now have connectivity entirely private. I mean, this is a big step. Entirely private. You can have this private app gateway layer 6 load balancer, first party Microsoft service, and use it to load balance layer 7 load balancing your internal application. Okay. So with that, let's go back to the slide deck and let's look at some of the limitation. Okay. Um, so first of all, right now you cannot create a private endpoint. So I think in a previous session we discussed how you can create private endpoints to application gateway. So let's say you have an application gateway running, you can create a private endpoint to it and access it from a different VNet without using VNet peering. Okay, very interesting feature. That feature is not yet supported with this preview. Okay, so if you have this feature enabled, your private endpoint will not work. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Oh, and second thing, I knew this is in the limitation. I know I have read somewhere. So global VNet peering. So let's say if you have global VNet peering, you have a app that is running in a peered VNet globally in a different region, this will not work. Okay. So that thing is, I mean, just keep that in mind. So this is basically it's going to drop the traffic. If so, right now it's not working with global VNet peering. So that scenario is not possible. I think somebody asked this question. So hopefully that answers it because I knew that I read somewhere that it has something to do with global VNet peering. Okay. And the last and one of the most important thing is if you are using application gateway ingress controller and you want to use this one as an ingress controller, and as you know, you can use app gateway ingress controller with AKS and to um, basically use it as an ingress point and get the best of both worlds in terms of firewall support, in terms of load balancing and ingress. What you will have to do is you will have to use AJIC 1.7. So this is the latest update that you have to use. So that is required. If you don't use it, I mean, if you don't, you cannot use it with other versions. So that's something, just keep in mind. Okay. So any questions? So just a quick recap.
Could
Um,
you repeat that again? What did you say? Like we cannot use with AKS
no, you
ingress?
can use it with AKS, but you have to use. So there is a there's an update, Azure Gateway Ingress Controller 1.7. You have to use that. So there are
Okay.
different packages. So yes, you can use it as long as you use App Gateway Ingress Controller 1.7.
Oh, okay. Okay. Makes
Got
sense.
it. Yeah, you can use it. Yeah, absolutely. So quick recap. Um, so we have the public preview of the private App Gateway controller. This controller, sorry, App Gateway. Um, what this allows you to do is you can have your App Gateway. You don't need any NSG rules to allow traffic from Gateway Manager service tag. At the same time, you can block all outbound egress if needed. Currently, this is in public preview. You have to um, enable a flag at the subscription level to make it work. And just keep in mind, after that, all gateways in that subscription, if you have that flag turned on, will be V2 preview, version. So just keep that in mind. And once again, this does not support at the moment global VNet peering. So if you have a peered VNet, globally peered VNet, it won't be able to access a site on the globally peered side. Okay. And a private endpoint is not yet supported for this public preview. Okay. So I know if you use V2, you can do private endpoint, but that is not supported yet with this one. Okay. So with that, and if any other question,
Nothing in the chat, Naveed, but I have a question. Do we know anything
please.
about pricing at this point, Naveed?
Same thing then. Pricing hasn't changed.
Okay, cool.
Yep. It has, so it's a feature ad. It is not uh, a different SKU. Let's put it this way.
Makes sense. Yeah, cool.
So with that, if there are no questions, I will give everybody their 3 minutes back and hope to see everybody next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and a great weekend.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Naveed.
Naveed.
Great session.
Wonderful presentation. Great job.
Thank you.